car fire, and that car was completely engulfed in flames when the fire department got there, and it also burned a car next to it. Are all these connected to this guy, Jersey? That remains to be seen.
Jim Spellman on the ground in Kansas City tonight as well. And Jim, you know, this dumpster fire, to me, it just doesn't seem like a random act, but I'm wondering, what, if anything, in terms of evidence, do we know came out of that fire?
We haven't got yet back the results of any testing they did on the fire, but if you just look at the video of it, this thing has burned it very I want to mention one quick thing. Megan said that Jersey has an arson record. I checked this out, and it's true. And he did 5 years in prison for an arson in the mid-'90s in New Jersey, Vinny.
Unbelievable. I want to show you folks something that Mike Brooks did today, because he went down to that apartment complex where the dumpster was to talk about these two fires and give us some perspective of where they were and how close they were to one another on separate dates. Take a look.
Her car was set on fire right down here. You see that stop sign? Just on the other side of Northeast 37th is where her car was parked, in the other side of this complex, on September 16th at 11:48 p.m.
Mike, I got to ask you about the type of fire that was described in that dumpster. Does that tell you anything about what may have caused that fire? Is it an accidental thing? Someone could flick a cigarette in there? Or does it sound like someone was pouring gas and trying to get rid of something? Any idea?
Well, Vinny, you and I talked about that. We sat there in the studio, and what did I say? I said for a fire that big, I would say that maybe there was accelerant used. Totally unsolicited by the guy that called it in, Vinny. He said to me, you know, it looked to me like maybe gasoline or something else was used because of the bulk of that fire and how intense that fire was 5 feet above that dumpster. So was it tested for any accelerants? We don't know. But, Vinny, something else I found out. It took them 2 weeks to haul that dumpster away before they brought in a new one.
2 weeks that potential evidence sits there. But Jim Spellman, I recall in early on interviews with baby Lisa's mom where she said she was confronted by police regarding some burnt clothes. How does that work? I mean, if they knew the fire was significant and they're waiting 2 weeks to get the dumpster?
Well, we know that that's what Deborah Bradley has reported. You know, we've gotten a kind of a one-sided view of those early discussions between law enforcement and Deborah Bradley. Law enforcement just won't go into those kind of details with us while they're still in the middle of an investigation. So we've gotten this from Deborah Bradley. We know that law enforcement, when they're doing these interviews, does not have to tell the truth. They can bring in props. They can do things like that to set up an interview and further, you know, the information they think they're going to get. Also, we know that Deborah Bradley has changed details in her story a few times. So besides, you know, noting what she has said, it's hard to really draw a lot of conclusions from any of that, Vinny.
All right, a great way to stay on top of this story. Any huge developments, I'll let you know as soon as I know. Just follow me on Twitter at Vinny Politan. Yes, if I find out something on the weekend, I will tweet you as well. Coming up more and more on the search for baby Lisa, we've got our folks on the ground in baby Lisa's neighborhood tonight, trying to figure out what happened here and when. When will police uncover some evidence that tells them what happened to this beautiful little girl?
That same night that baby Lisa disappeared, we know there was a fire in that dumpster right there. That's where Mike Brooks has been doing more investigating.
Straight down here, you see right underneath that tree, you see that road? That's North Brighton Avenue. And straight up North Brighton Avenue, 1/2 mile, is where we saw that fuzzy image in a white T-shirt on the surveillance camera 1/2 mile up that road at the BP station.
So, Mike, this is the house where baby Lisa disappeared from. We know that Deborah Bradley, the mom, the next-door neighbor, and another man were sitting on the stoop right here.
Yep.
We know that the far window that Jeremy Irwin, the father, says was ajar. What do you make of this house?
Yeah, you know, if you look at the whole house, Jim, that window, it's really kind of odd because that wall. We've seen the law enforcement doing the recreations of trying different ways to go in that window. You know, you and I are pretty big guys. It'd be even tough for us to even try to step through that window. But you look at the rest of the house. You've got spotlights right here. And last night I was noticing, you know what? There's no trees in front of here. Like some of the other houses, there's trees in front, Jim. This is very well lit all the way over to the front door. But then it's wide open here. This is all their space here. But then you've also got a street light right here at the end of their driveway, which really lights up this street. You've got another street light right there on the other side of that pine tree. But as an investigator, I'm looking, okay, would this be the best way to get into this house if you want to steal a baby? No, I would go around back. You and I were around there last night. It's dark. There's little tiny fence to just step over and a bunch of different windows. You know, in fact, let's go show our viewers what it looks like in the back of this house.
Let's check it out.
Okay.
Okay, so this is an area we showed you last week. It's this little public wooded area that leads to the back of baby Lisa's house. At night, no lights back here at all. Very hard to be seen. And it leads you right to the back of baby Lisa's house. So, Mike, what do you make of the back view of the house after seeing the front?
If you look at the trees, and again, they've lost some of the leaves, but it's so dark back here. When we were back here last night, Jim, it was so dark. And you've got the deck. You've got a window right over that's totally concealed, right over on the deck, on the side of the house. You've got the window. Then down by just by that little green trailer, there's a little sliding glass door. That's totally concealed. And then you've got another window right around the side there, because that driveway at the end of that trailer, that leads right out onto the street. And there's one spotlight. There is a spotlight there in the corner, I noticed. But still, this whole area back here, Jim, totally concealed and dark. And
behind that trailer, you can't see it from here, but there's two garage doors that go to interior garages underneath there, even more possible entryways.
And you know, you got the dog next door here. The dog's out, but I think he's gotten to know you, so he's not barking. Could that have been a deterrent for somebody not to come back here? That's a possibility too.
And the dog could know a lot of people besides just me.
Somebody who's in the neighborhood a lot? Absolutely.
Now, about 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks ago, police did an extensive search here, Mike. They concentrated the outdoor part of the search on this area behind the shed. This is debris that they moved. And this is a wooded area right here. It starts right in their backyard, and it leads out to an area that we know the police and FBI and even the National Guard have searched extensively. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that went all the way down to that area down by the school where the two boys go. And, I mean, there's so many wooded areas to go in and out of around this neighborhood. And, you know, one of the things I was looking at when we were looking at when I was watching the FBI evidence response team, when they were in there with rakes, is if somebody was going over a fence, could something possibly drop out? We know that some of the people involved in this smoke cigarettes. They've been looking for a cigarette butt, for possible DNA. These are all kinds of things that investigators would look for when you're in there raking. Just little tiny things that people might not even see.
I noticed that they even bagged the shovels and rakes themselves that they used that had been in the soil. What do they use that for?
Well, you've got soil. So there's soil in those rakes. There's soil in those shovels. Could that be a soil sample to compare that from here against something else they might find at another scene? That's the reason they bagged those up.
From everything we could see, it looked like in this massive 17-hour search that they did an incredibly thorough job.
They did, and they spent a long time. You know, this is just part of probably what they cleared out of here, and you know what they found there. We don't know yet. They're not saying.
After assessing the front, the back, kind of the views that somebody trying to get in and out of this house would have, what are the questions, you know, that spring to mind to you that investigators are going to be asking?
Well, you know, I keep going back to Jersey. Someone who knew this neighborhood, someone who didn't have a car, Jim, who would walk around this neighborhood, who would know where this wooded area would lead to know where this area would lead to know where the apartments, just right over here. Folks, that apartment where they had that dumpster fire was just right on the other side of those homes here. Almost as a crow flies, I would say maybe 200 yards, maybe 200 yards. Everything is so close. It's really hard to see that when you're just looking at everything. You talk about the houses, but when in the totality of everything, Jim, there's all these pieces that need to fit together. How do they fit together? That's what we're going to try to find out.
Mike Brooks and Jim Spellman on the ground there in Kansas City searching for some answers, folks. Mike, where do you think the break in this case comes from? Does it come from a piece of physical evidence that they maybe have or are going to get? Or is it going to come from someone who knows something who then finally says something?
All the above, Vinny. It could come from anywhere. But, you know, what still bothers me, Vinny, and we've all been talking about this. Deborah Bradley, Jeremy Irwin, they have not talked to law enforcement since October 8th. And the little boys have yet to be interviewed. They heard something. She said that in their interview early on. What did they hear? What did they see? They hold a lot of answers. I think maybe even if it's just one little piece of information that could help advance this investigation, Vinny, it needs to come out. But there again, there's so many pieces all over the map right now that need to be linked. You know, Jersey, you know, all the characters from this neighborhood, from that night. There's so many things that happened for the first time that night, Vinny. Do they all fit together? Do they have to do with the disappearance of little Lisa? That's what we're trying to find out.
Jim Spellman, you have an opportunity to speak to so many people. And this is a question I have for you because, you know, early on, the family says we've got this private investigator. He shows up in town, Wild Bill Stanton, right? Investigating the disappearance, trying to figure this whole thing out, right? Working with law enforcement, coming up with theories. You've been on the ground more than he has. I know that for a fact. But you've spoken to a lot of people related who've seen things, heard things. Have you asked them if, you know, baby Lisa's parents' investigators have spoken to them?
Absolutely. I mean, we want to know what is that defense team doing. So we've been asking people, every single person I met in this neighborhood, witnesses, this whole cast of characters, I've asked every single one of them, have you spoken to Bill Stanton? What did he speak to you about? And not a single one of them said that Bill Stanton had spoken to them. I've run into Bill Stanton a handful of times here. I saw him bringing a crew from another network into baby Lisa's house. I saw him shooting with another network out at a site location, but none of these witnesses have spoken with him, Vinny.
That's unbelievable, because these are all people that have some connection to the neighborhood, to the house, some connection to baby Lisa. Our coverage continues right here on HLN Special Report.
Hi, Mom. Hi, Mom. What are you doing?
So that was Deborah Bradley and Jeremy Irwin. They just returned here to their home on North Lister. They had been staying a few miles away with some relatives' house. They parked in the back and they loaded their vehicle up with a few things and took off. As usual, they weren't interested in talking to the press.
Baby Lisa's parents making a rare visit back to the home, back to where baby Lisa went missing. Jim Spellman's with us, CNN correspondent in Kansas City, Missouri. Jim, I get the feeling that baby Lisa's parents want the media to all go home, to all just drop this story. Do you get the same feeling?
Yeah, I really think they would enjoy having everybody leave. You know, a lot of it has died down, and there aren't just the big groups of media out here every single day. And every once in a while now, I come across Jeremy and Deborah like that afternoon when they just had come over here to pick a few things up. The next day, I drove by the other house where they've been staying, and Deborah was out on the front porch having a cigarette with some of her friends, and I said hi, and it was very pleasant, and asked her if we could speak, and she said, no, I'm not allowed to. And so you start to see them
say
when
that one more
everybody
time,
goes
Jim.
away, you know. But
Jim, she said what? I'm not allowed to?
Sure. Yeah, and exactly, and that's what we've gotten several times from. I was just in our car, and we drive by there once in a while to see what's going on. And she was out there, and I said, "Hi, Deborah, how's it going?" And she said, "Hi," and I said, "Can we speak? I'd like to speak with you." She said, "I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to." Very nice, very pleasant, and we've gotten that language from the family for a long time. We know that's the guidance they've gotten. Just today, in fact, I had an email exchange with the local attorney, a guy named John Paserno. I've been emailing him, asking for interviews, asking for information. He said today, listen, everything has to go through Joe Tacopina. He's the New York attorney who's been handling this. They're funneling all the media through that New York attorney. So we have that barrier to the family that's been up since I arrived on this story almost a month ago.
All right, and the question I have for Joe Tacopina tonight is, Joe, the media's dying down. The story's dying down. How does that help your clients find their baby? That's all I want to know. How does that help your clients find their missing baby? Mike Brooks, I want to give you the last word tonight from Kansas City, Missouri. Absolutely frustrating, and I don't get it. Anyhow, is how tall you actually are. But if you don't look like a midget next to, if you don't look like a small man next to Mike Brooks, then you are a big man. Great job, guys. All right, moving on. The Penn State child